Alright, we're back with the 2004 RMZ 250. So if you guys watched last video on this bike, we picked it up for $1,000, thinking it needed a carb clean and a valve adjustment. At least that's what the seller said. Got back home, did the carb clean, did the valve adjustment, still would not fire up. So we found out it had low compression. So what I did was put some oil down the cylinder to bump up that compression, and it actually did fire up for a brief second, but shut down instantly. So I'm like, okay, it's gotta be low compression issue. Let's tear down the top end. So we tore down the top end, and we actually found that the rod bearing was shot. You can see it's getting really sticky in there. So as you rotate this engine over, it'll stick in place and it won't move. So those bearings are shot in there. So what I think was happening was this bike was actually running until this locked up, and then it would shut off instantly and randomly, like the seller was saying. So I don't think it was a valve problem, don't think it was a carb problem. It was actually the rod bearing locking up and causing the bike to stop running. So a lot of people in the comments said, you know, this bike is pretty much a junk bike. It's like the worst year of dirt bikes they made, worst model, not worth rebuilding. Everyone's like, part it out, get your money back for it. And I definitely debated parting this thing out. I'm like, well, if we spend less than 500 bucks, it'll probably be worth it, because I only paid $1,000 for this bike. So we ended up buying all the parts for it, and we're gonna rebuild it today. So we got a new used crank with a really good rod bearing in there. Came off a running bike. We got the new oil filter. We got the hot cams cam chain. All Balls Racing crank bearings. Those are in the freezer. We've got the Vertex big bore kit here. So this gasket kit is required for the big bore piston kit, which I didn't realize we had until I measured. So the old piston was 3 millimeters over bore, so that's what we had to order up. Because we have a cylinder works cylinder to go along with it, that's a big bore cylinder. So somebody bought the big bore kit for it, and so now we have to buy that for the machine. Otherwise we're buying a $500 kit, and we're not doing that. So we got a $70 gasket kit, another $50 gasket kit, over $200 piston, and then a $50 cam chain, and I think this was like 50 bucks for the bearings. Oh, and then this was like 100 bucks for the crank. So hopefully that's less than $500, and we can get this bike up and running for less than $1,500. That's the goal today, but it might be a long video. We've got to start with getting this engine out, and then we've got to rebuild the whole thing. So stay tuned. Should be a fun one. All right, we got everything else off the engine. We just need this swing arm bolt to come through. We can. It's a big nut. All right, now this swing arm bolt has to push all the way through. A lot of times these are just stuck in the frame here, so let's just see. It's pushing. Now, oh yeah, there we go. All right, engine is out on the bench. Let's start tearing into it, and we'll start rebuilding this thing. See what this clutch looks like in here. Peller here. Just gonna quick get that out. It just zips off like that. Should be a washer underneath there too. Yep. Believe this cover can come off. Looks like all new gaskets, like it was rebuilt at one point. Looks good there. And we drained this oil, and no metal shavings in the oil at all. So I don't know if the rod bearing just went out and there wasn't enough time to get shavings in the oil. I'm not 100% sure, but we know the rod bearing's bad. You can see the oil looks really good. Oil's brand new. So maybe they replaced the oil, and that's why we don't see metal shavings in it. Definitely could be. Alright, yeah. Washer on there. Clutch should come right off. Looks good. Gear there comes off. Alright. There. Kickstart gear off. Looks good. No teeth missing in from that. Alright, now we can get the shift shaft out. There's gonna be that washer right there on it. Alright. Yeah, there's 0 metal shavings down here. So that's good. At least the bearing didn't leave residue behind. Let's see if the oil pump feels good. See if it pumps out of here. It feels smooth. Check that out too. Make sure that's all good. Underneath there too. Alright. So that's pretty much everything for this side that we have to take off. We don't have to disassemble the transmission if there's no metal chunks in there. Alright, stator side. Let's get this off. Neutral switch right there comes off. Yep, 14. Little nut. Let's see if we have a puller for it. Twist this in. Go. Now we can go ahead and get all of our case bolts out. Coming. Oh yeah, there's some metal shavings in there. Little bearings. That's crazy. You can see the two filter screens right there. All these bearings feel good. Yep. Crank bearings feel good. Yeah, listen to that. Ooh, look at, yeah, bearings shot in there. So that's junk. Crank bearing there feels really good too. That all looks really good. There's not a whole lot of metal in there at all. Well, yeah, I think the bearing just went out. So we'll clean it all up, come back and get these new bearings pushed in. Check out what I found in the bottom of the case. A shim. So somebody must have dropped a shim down there at one point. All right, all the teeth on the transmission looks good. No missing teeth. Super smooth. Shifts through all the gears smoothly. So that all looks good. We're gonna check out the oil pump next. All right. So there's a little circlip here. Then the gear can come off. And we can get this oil pump out. Those are Loctited in. Make sure there's no metal chunks in there. Looks all nice and smooth. Yeah, not a single speck of metal in there. That looks really good. Alright, we popped the first bearing out. Feels really good, but we got brand new bearings, so we'll replace them. This bearing should drop right in here. Yeah. All right, next case. Alright, see if it drops right in here. Yep, there we go. Alright, both bearings are installed. No pounding involved. Alright, let's get some assembly lube on the bearings here. You can see how smooth those are. Gonna put some oil in the transmission. It's already pretty oiled up from before, but put a little bit on there. This will all get oiled once we put oil in the case, obviously, but alright, now we can get the two case halves together again and get that cranking. Can go in. Alright, crank is in. Alright, let's get this case half on. We got the gasket maker on there, you can see, and then our two filters right here. These are going to go on. Alright, case halves are together. Want to make sure that the crank moves smoothly. And you can see it does not bind up at all. Really smooth. And then transmission. You don't want that binding up at all. And that is super smooth. So what I like to do is wait about an hour and then bolt it down, just so that gasket maker can set up for a little bit. Alright, it's the next morning. All the gasket maker's dry. We tightened down those bolts last night. So let's get the clutch area back together. We're gonna fast forward through that because you guys saw me just take it apart. So we're just gonna throw that back together and then we'll show you the new cam chain we're putting on. We pretty much got everything back on. The crank gear we got back on with the new seal behind it. And then we're just getting the clutch on right now. So not too complicated. And this engine is pretty simple compared to most. Get our gasket going on. Put a little gasket maker on there just to hold it in place here while we get the cover on. And there should be one more dowel pin that goes over on this side over here. This shaft has to line up with that hole right there. That's basically it. I'm just gonna put a little gasket maker right here too. I don't want coolant leaking from there. So you can see that's a coolant passage. I'm just gonna put a little bit right there. There's nothing you can do about it. So let's get this cover installed. Perfect. There's a washer underneath the water pump here. Spin that guy on. All right, new oil filter going in here. Alright, so this is going to go on this way with the gasket down like that. Just like that. And then we'll get this cover on. Alright, stator side. Let's get our guide in first. In the new one. So I've got a hot cams cam chain going in. Just drop this through. Just like that. That just keeps the cam chain in place. Something like that. Alright, flywheel going on. Line up that woodruff key. Alright, we've got the big bore base gasket going on. So these are actually metal gaskets because it's a big bore. So you don't need any gasket maker for these. This just goes on just like this. So because this is a Nickel plate cylinder, you don't want to hone it out. We'll just spray it with some WD-40. Take the Scotch-Brite pad and just kind of scuff this up a little bit. Take that glaze off. Like I said before, this is a big bore cylinder, so it takes specific gaskets. All right, we got the brand new Vertex piston. Take a look at that. Got our pin for it right there. And the circlips are in there as well. Just see if it's the right fit. Yep. All right, we've got our rings for it. Right here. Open those up. All right, here we go. So there's just going to be one ring on this piston. And you can actually see it's an R on this ring right here. So that means facing up. So when we install it, that's facing up. Let's see what this ring gap is at. That is very small. That's gonna be like 12 thousandths, it looks like. Maybe a little bit bigger, maybe 13 thousandths. That's tighter than 13 thousandths, okay. Let's see if it's 12. Yep, exactly 12 thousandths. That is a tight ring gap. But that's good for this bike. So you can see, nice tight ring gap. And that's it, we've only got one ring. So what I like to do is get the circlips in first, one of them at least. So whichever side is easier to work with. All right, we got one of the circlips in right there. Now we can get our oil rings on. Like that. Doesn't matter which way these go on. There's no up or down. There we go. And then the bottom ring. All right, then the top ring. So there's an R right there. It's gonna be facing up when you install it. Just like that. Not much to it. There we go. And you want these ring gaps staggered, so one right here, we've got one right there, and one right there. It's using some 10W40 around the piston rings here. Some in here, top of the piston. Get our pin lubed up here. Do the crank. Alright, then we can lube up the cylinder as well. That looks good. That goes on like that. Alright, then we can get the other circlip in. Alright, that's definitely one of the worst circlips I've had to get on in a while. That's a pain in the butt because the piston sits so low. But yeah, let's get the cylinder on next. Hopefully the cylinder is easier to get on. Should be fairly easy with the one ring here. I would think. Alright, now the gasket goes on here. Let's see, which way does this thing go? I believe it goes this way, let's see. Alright, these are all the same size. Going in. Also have the crush washer on there. Alright, torque spec for the head bolts are 36 foot-pounds. Alright, those are torqued down. Alright, we got this thing to tap dead center. Remember, it's the two notches down here, and I go right in between them, and that's tap dead center. We put the screwdriver in there just to make sure, but it was right between the two lines for tap dead center, so we're using that on the flywheel. So now we can get our exhaust cam in. Make sure those lines didn't move here, and they did. Sometimes it's a little tricky here. Our exhaust came in here. Alright, let's see, we're still in between the marks, that's good. So we want to go about right there. Looks good. Intake cam going on. So there's a dot right here and a dot right there. So you want the lobes facing away from the exhaust towards the intake. That line's gonna be straight up, that line's gonna be parallel with the surface of the head. So it's a little tricky because we've got a brand new cam chain. So it's a little tighter than normal. All right, I'll show you guys the lines down here. And we can see them together. Let's see if you guys can see them. Right there. So we're right in between those two lines. Let me go up here. Now you can see that dot is parallel with the surface of the head. That one's straight up and down, that one's straight up and down. You've got one parallel with the surface of the head right there. So we are spot on for timing. We're gonna get our chain tensioner in there and we should be good to go. All right, we got everything tightened down up here. Valve clearances before we tighten up the chain are going to be intake valves. Going to be at 4 thousandths to 6 thousandths, so we set those to 5. You can see right here. They just fit in there. Those are perfect. Like they just barely fit in there. And then the exhaust valves are going to be set to 7 to 9. So we set those to 8 thousandths. And those are perfect as well. Alright, let's get this tensioner in. It doesn't look like there's an up or down on it. So just like this. Get our 2 bolts in. Then this rod and spring go in. Alright, cam chain's nice and tensioned up here. All right, we got the engine back in, all the coolant lines are hooked up, clutch is hooked up, and the engine mounts are all in. So let's get the kick lever on. All right, because this is a big bore, typically you want to install a smaller main jet because the area of the cylinder is bigger, which pulls in more fuel and air. So we might have to change out the main jet, So what we're gonna do is test out the stock jets that are in it right now, see how it runs and adjust from there. I think that's the best option. All right, let's get some oil in here. Right here on the sticker, it says completely dry, which is what it is, 1.58 liters. And then another about half quart. All right, here we go. New crank, new bearings, new top end. Let's see what happens. Hopefully it fires up. Uh-oh. I don't know what's going on. It is not firing. Huh. What the heck? Not good. We had the same problem before we tore it down too. I don't know what's going on with it. Brand new top end. Compression's gotta be perfect. The ring gap is spot on. Wonder if it's like weak spark or something. I don't know, sparks seem good, but yeah, this one's really stumping me. I don't know. It's really acting weird. All right, so I gave it a little throttle while starting and it like backfired and puffed out a bunch of smoke. So let's see if it'll fire up now. All right, so I think the idle is low, and that's why it wasn't firing up. So we cracked the throttle just like a little bit, and it fires right up. So it's puffing out a lot of smoke through here. We're missing the gasket right there, unfortunately. I forgot to order that up. But otherwise, it seems to be doing pretty good so far. So we'll see. We'll get the gas tank hooked back up and see if she idles here. So idle was just really low. She's idling now. Dripping some oil from there. Hope to fix that. Looks like this gasket that I did not replace is leaking, so we'll quick take that off, replace it, and then we shouldn't have any oil leaks. All right, we got the new gasket on there. Let's see if it still leaks. All right, we fixed that leak. That's good. Got her dial in here. Sounds pretty good. No smoke at all. So obviously it's gonna run kind of weird with that exhaust leak, but I think we're ready to test drive this thing. We'll bring along the jets and see if we need to rejet it. All right, made it up to the land here. Let's do a little test drive on this thing. See what it can do today. Alright, I gotta say, I am pleasantly surprised at how well this bike runs and how much power it has. I was not expecting much from it because it is kind of a beat bike, but yeah, it gets up and goes. I wasn't riding too crazy because I don't like that pipe right there, but yeah, it sounds good. Wasn't popping at all, no backfiring, revved out completely, not bogging down. So I think once we get that gasket for the pipe, we're gonna be spot on with the jetting. Alright, this thing's all cleaned up, looking pretty good now. Doesn't look horrible. We're gonna try to get off that sticker right there, but before we do that, let's take a look at the spark plug, see if the jetting is on. There's Vin. What's he up to? Hey, what do you think of the bike? There he goes. Crazy dog. And it is white. So it is running lean. Look at that. Straight white. So we're gonna have to richen up the jets a little bit because that's not good. So we'll probably put in maybe 5 sizes bigger on the main jet and we should be good. And we'll check it again. But that's why you check it, because you never know. It sounds like it's running good, but in this case it's running pretty lean. Well, we are going to try to rejet this and then test that plug again and see if we're still running lean. But we're gonna be doing that off camera. This video is getting too long and I'm sure you guys are sick of watching at this point. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video on this thing, picking it up for $1,000, diagnosing it, figuring out what was wrong, and then rebuilding the whole thing, bottom end, top end, and getting this thing to start up and ride for the first time. We still need a couple more parts for it. I wanna get the gasket for the pipe and a clamp, and then probably a graphics kit for it and some new tires, and this thing will be pretty good. So yeah, definitely runs good, just needs to be jetted properly, and I think we'll be in business here. So hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing. Stay tuned for next video, and until next time, we are out.